Okay, we're looking at section 4.7, math 31, and operations, add, subtract, multiply, and divide using mixed numbers. This is actually part two of a two-part series, so you'll have to find the part one of two in the same folder, hopefully, that you're looking on Schoology. Okay, so give the exact difference, we'll be subtracting this time, and the estimated difference. Okay. In this case, you start on the right, 5 sevenths minus 3 sevenths, and what's nice about this is they're both sevenths, so that's going to be 2 sevenths. And then 8 minus 2 is 6, so the exact answer is 6 and 2 sevenths. Now, we're kind of going backwards here. We should have estimated before we did this. 7, if you cut it in half, is 3.5, so this is past halfway. So we're going to bump this to 9. And then 3 sevenths is just shy of the halfway point, so we don't do anything with the 2. We don't bump it up or not notch. So it turns out to be 9 minus 2 is our estimate, and it's not quite as good as some of the estimates we had on the previous video. 7 is a little bit off from 6 and 2 sevenths, the exact answer. Okay, example H, same instructions. So what we notice here is that the denominator here, 8, and the other denominator, 4, they're not common. They don't match. So if we multiply the top and bottom by 2, it'll give us an 8 on the bottom, which is what we desire. So let me now copy this program or this problem over here on the side. So we have 14 is 6/8 minus 2 and 1/8. So if you subtract the fractions, 6/8 minus 1/8, you get your 5/8 here. And then 14 minus 2. So the exact answer is 12 and 5/8. I keep forgetting to do the estimate first. Okay, so 3/4 on the original problem is closer to 1 than it is to 0. So we're going to call it 15 instead of 14 right here. That's our estimate. Half of 8 would be 4, and that 1/8 is definitely not that much, so we're not going to round that one up. So 15 minus 2 would be 13. And 12 and 5/8, that's pretty close to 13. Okay, find the exact difference and an estimated difference. Why not do the estimated before this time? I forgot several times here. 2/5 is less than half of 5. Excuse me, 2 is less than half of 5. So this 9 does not get affected. You don't bump it up. But when you come down here, the 5 compared with 6 is more than half of it. So we'll call that a 3 instead. So we're thinking we're going to get an answer somewhere in the neighborhood of 6. Okay, we got different denominators here. 5 and 6, they go into 30. So I'm going to make them both 30. Here by multiplying by 6. And down here by multiplying by 5. Which then recasts the problem as 9 and 12/30. And it can be minus 2 and 25 over 30. Okay, so we've got a common denominator here, but we have a different problem. 12 minus 25, there's not enough in this 12 to take away 25. So we have to borrow from this whole number, and it's a little tricky when you're doing this. We're borrowing 1 and putting it in the other column, but we got to make sure that it has a common denominator. So this is the version of 1 that you bring over. Okay, and that takes us to, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this here and make it a little clearer. So far we have 8 and 42/30. 42/30. And that's from adding those up there. And down below we're subtracting 2 and 25/30, which then gives us 17/30 over here and 6 over here. And they're off a little bit. That's 17/30, a little more than a half a unit. Okay, so what are we going to do when there's nothing up here in the fraction column to subtract from? Well, you obviously have to steal from this 15, so we're going to make that 14. And when you bring it over, you may as well get the common denominator. That extra 1 is you're going to be adding a 5/5 there. So if you want to think of it this way, it's 14 plus 5/5, which is your 15. Okay, now subtract, you get 3/5 and 12. So there's your exact answer, 12 and 3/5. And let's see how to estimate this. We have a 15. I'm just going to write that one. 2/5 is not half of 2 out of 5 is not half, so we're going to just say minus 2, which gives 13, and 12 and 3/5 is indeed pretty close to 13. Okay, I've got a couple more problems here, about 3 of them. The red line shown below is 14 and 3/8 inches. The blue line is 2 and 5/8 inches. So how much longer is the red one than the blue one? You're going to subtract one length from the other. And in this case, we have 3 minus 5, which we can't do that. We got to borrow here. So let's make this 13, and that'll buy us another whole 8/8. So there's 11/8 on that top line, minus 5/8 would be 6/8. And then 1. Now you do have to simplify the 6/8 by dividing by 2. So you get a final answer of 1 3/4. Okay, this next one here, example L, we're supposed to find the area of this rectangle. And so you multiply length times width. This problem is going to be 3 1/4 times 7 1/2. And this is a good place for you to unmix these because it's so much easier when you get it in improper fraction mode. 4 times 3 plus 1, 13/4. And then we're multiplying that by 2 times 7 plus 1, which is 15/2. And it doesn't look like anything at all cancels here. So we're going to go 13 times 15 is 195/8. And that problem's done. These are square feet, by the way. So this is how you write it, but you say square feet. Okay. We've got this one to do, and I think we're going to be done after that. So we're supposed to find the perimeter of this object, and that just means we're going to be adding all the side lengths. I'm going to start in that upper corner there, and I'm going to work my way around this in a clockwise manner. So starting with 5 1/4, we'll be adding to that 6 1/3, and then 6 and 5. And all of these get added together. Now what we have here is a situation where we don't have a common denominator here. So I'm going to say times 4/4 there, and times 3/3 here, which then rewrites the problem like this. 5 3/12 plus 6 4/12 plus 6 plus 5. And so you end up with 22 7/12. And that problem, ladies and gentlemen, is done, which takes us to a sad ending. Alas, this lesson is over.